Our hearts speak a language that words can never fully capture. Every thought, every emotion, every silent longing carries a message meant not for the ears but for the soul. In the rush of daily life, we often ignore this language, believing that speaking is the only way to be understood. But the heart communicates through presence, through attention, and through subtle energy. To truly understand another or even ourselves, we must learn to listen beyond words. The heart communicates in ways that words cannot capture. Every feeling, every instinct, every subtle shift in our emotions carries a message if we learn to recognize it. When we feel a pang of unease, it is not merely a random sensation, it is the heart signaling that something in our environment or in our choices needs attention. Similarly, a sudden surge of joy, excitement, or inspiration is more than a fleeting emotion. It is a message guiding us toward experiences or connections that nurture our growth. Often we overlook these signals because we are conditioned to value verbal communication above all else. We wait for someone to tell us what is important, or we search for explanations in logic, ignoring the intuitive language our hearts have been speaking all along. Learning to listen requires slowing down, creating space within ourselves where emotions can arise without judgment. In that space, we begin to notice patterns in our feelings, the recurring whispers that reveal our deepest values and desires. The heart's language is nuanced and layered. It speaks in textures, rhythms, and vibrations rather than syllables. By tuning into it, we gain access to a form of wisdom that is immediate, profound, and personal. Every heartbeat, every subtle shift in sensation is a piece of guidance waiting for our attention, and every ignored message is an opportunity for growth deferred. The more we honor this internal dialogue, the more attuned we become to the undercurrents of life, sensing truths about ourselves and others that would remain hidden if we relied solely on spoken words. The heart, in its quiet persistence, teaches us that real understanding often comes not from what is said, but from what is felt and perceived beneath the surface. Awareness is the gateway to understanding the language of the heart. Before we can interpret the subtle messages our emotions carry, we must first learn to notice them. Often life moves at such a rapid pace that we ignore or suppress the quiet stirrings within us, labeling them as trivial or irrelevant. Yet these small signals, an unexplained tension, a fleeting sense of excitement, a gentle pull toward something, are the heart's way of communicating its truth. Awareness requires us to pause and observe our inner landscape without judgment. It means recognizing the difference between fleeting distractions and the persistent nudges that hint at deeper needs or desires. By paying attention to these signals, we begin to uncover patterns that reveal who we are at our core, what we value, and where we may be straying from our authentic path. This practice is not passive. It requires intention and mindfulness. It asks us to slow down, to notice the subtleties in our reactions to people, situations, and environments. It also teaches us to differentiate between the voice of fear, habit, or ego and the genuine guidance of the heart. When we cultivate this level of awareness, we create a bridge between our internal experiences and the outer world, allowing us to respond with clarity rather than react impulsively. Over time, this deepened sensitivity enables us to navigate life with greater insight, understanding not just the surface events but the underlying emotional currents that shape our experiences. Awareness, therefore, is not merely noticing, it is the conscious tuning of our perception to the delicate signals that our heart sends, the first step in truly hearing its unspoken language. Connection through unspoken signals is one of the most profound ways in which human beings communicate. While words allow us to convey information, they are often limited in their ability to express the depth and complexity of our inner experiences. A smile, a glance, a gesture, or even the way someone carries themselves can convey emotions that words cannot reach. These subtle expressions of feeling are the language of the heart, and learning to perceive them opens the door to deeper understanding and empathy. When we meet another person, the initial impressions are often formed not by what they say, but by how they are present. Their posture, the tone of their voice, the rhythm of their movements, and the micro-expressions that flicker across their face all speak volumes. A gentle tilt of the head, a fleeting smile, or a pause before responding can reveal openness, curiosity, hesitation, or vulnerability. These signals, though small and often unconscious, are rich with meaning. They communicate trust or doubt, attraction or disinterest, warmth or distance. By attuning ourselves to these cues, we can sense the true emotions behind the words, noticing when someone is hiding discomfort or masking excitement, when their heart aligns with their speech or contradicts it. The power of these unspoken signals lies in their immediacy and authenticity. Unlike words which can be manipulated, rehearsed, or misinterpreted, gestures and expressions often emerge spontaneously, reflecting the genuine state of a person's heart. A simple touch, for instance, can communicate care, reassurance, or solidarity in ways that words may fail to convey. The embrace of a friend, a hand placed lightly on the shoulder, or the supportive presence beside someone in silence can express empathy more deeply than an eloquent sentence. These nonverbal acts bypass the mind's filters and speak directly to the soul, creating a resonance that is felt rather than analyzed. Moreover, the subtleties of nonverbal communication are not limited to interactions with others. They also reflect the dialogue between our inner selves and the outer world. Our body language, tone, and facial expressions reveal our state of being even when we attempt to hide it. Awareness of our own unspoken signals allows us to understand how we are perceived and how we influence the energy of those around us. When we are calm, centered, and open, our presence communicates safety and trust, encouraging others to relax and be authentic. Conversely, tension, avoidance, or closed-off gestures signal discomfort or resistance, which can create barriers in relationships. By observing our own nonverbal cues, we gain insight into our emotional landscape and can consciously cultivate ways of being that align with our intentions. Developing the ability to read unspoken signals also requires patience and presence. Unlike verbal communication, which often demands an immediate response, nonverbal cues unfold gradually and must be perceived with attentiveness. A fleeting glance, a subtle shift in posture, or a pause in conversation may seem insignificant in isolation, but when observed in context, these patterns reveal profound insights into someone's state of mind and heart. Cultivating this awareness demands slowing down, tuning into the rhythm of interactions, and resisting the urge to jump to conclusions or impose interpretations too quickly. The heart communicates in layers, and understanding these layers requires both sensitivity and humility. Empathy is born from this deep attention to unspoken language. When we attune ourselves to the emotional currents beneath words, we develop the capacity to feel alongside others rather than merely respond to the literal content of their speech. This allows us to offer support that resonates with the needs of the heart rather than the mind alone. Listening with the eyes, the body, and the energy we bring into a space becomes a form of communion, a silent conversation that can convey understanding, acceptance, and care. In moments of grief, joy, or vulnerability, these unspoken signals often carry more meaning than any explanation could, connecting hearts in ways that transcend intellect or reasoning. Nonverbal communication also plays a crucial role in building trust and intimacy. In relationships, the alignment of words and gestures fosters a sense of reliability and authenticity. When someone's actions mirror their emotions, their presence reassures us that we are seen and understood. Conversely, when there is a dissonance between what is said and what is expressed through gestures or tone, we sense the incongruence immediately, even if we cannot articulate it. Recognizing these signals allows us to navigate relationships with greater clarity, understanding the subtleties of connection that are often hidden beneath the surface. Furthermore, unspoken signals extend beyond human-to-human interaction. They are present in the natural world, in art, in music, and in the energy of our surroundings. The rustling of leaves, the play of light and shadow, or the silence of a sacred space communicates in ways that resonate with the heart. By learning to perceive and honor these subtle cues, we cultivate a broader awareness of life's interconnectedness and the deeper layers of meaning that permeate our existence. The heart's language is omnipresent, waiting to be noticed by those willing to slow down and attune themselves to its rhythms. The cultivation of sensitivity to unspoken signals is a lifelong practice. It requires openness, observation, and an ever-present willingness to engage with life beyond the superficial. It asks us to trust our instincts, to honor the subtle nudges of intuition, and to approach each interaction with curiosity and presence. In doing so, we create a space where true understanding can emerge, where connection is no longer confined to words, and where the heart can speak freely in its unspoken language. Ultimately, the richness of connection through unspoken signals reminds us that communication is far more than verbal exchange. It is the resonance of energy, emotion, and presence flowing silently between beings. By learning to perceive, interpret, and respond to these signals, we open ourselves to a deeper level of intimacy, empathy, and awareness, discovering a form of understanding that is immediate, profound, and enduring. In a world often dominated by words, the subtle, unspoken currents of the heart remain a timeless and essential mode of connection, waiting for us to truly listen. Vulnerability is the doorway through which the heart's unspoken language flows most clearly. It is a state that many of us instinctively resist because it exposes the deepest corners of our being, the places where fear, longing, and uncertainty dwell. Yet it is precisely through this exposure that authentic connection becomes possible. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we stop relying solely on words, logic, or outward appearances to communicate who we are. Instead, we communicate through the raw honesty of presence, the tremor in our voice, the softness of our gaze, or the unguarded gestures that reveal our inner truth. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is the courageous acknowledgement that our emotions, fears, and desires are valid and worthy of attention, both from ourselves and from those around us. Embracing vulnerability begins with self-awareness. To be vulnerable, we must first recognize the parts of ourselves we tend to hide. It is easy to present a carefully curated version of who we are, shaped by social expectation, past experiences, or fear of judgment. But beneath these masks lie the authentic expressions of our heart, waiting to be noticed and honored. This recognition requires a willingness to sit with discomfort, to observe our insecurities without suppressing them, and to acknowledge emotions we might usually avoid. Each moment of awareness strengthens our capacity to communicate honestly and directly through the subtle language of our being. The power of vulnerability lies in its ability to foster empathy and understanding. When one person opens their heart, even in the smallest way, it invites others to respond in kind. A glance that lingers, a hand that reaches out, a tear shed quietly in the presence of another, all these unspoken expressions resonate with shared humanity. They speak of courage, trust, and authenticity. In these moments, words often become unnecessary because the heart's language conveys what the mind cannot fully articulate. The connection that emerges is deeper, richer, and more enduring because it is rooted in genuine emotional resonance rather than surface-level interaction. Vulnerability also demands a relinquishing of control. The heart's unspoken messages cannot be forced, scripted, or contained. When we attempt to control how we are perceived or insist on perfect clarity in communication, we distance ourselves from the very essence we wish to share. To be vulnerable is to accept uncertainty, to let go of the need for approval or validation, and to allow our presence to be received as it is. This surrender opens space for authenticity to flow, for our intentions and emotions to be felt directly by those around us. It is in this surrender that trust, intimacy, and genuine understanding take root. Another essential aspect of vulnerability is the courage to embrace discomfort. The heart's language often carries emotions that are difficult to face: sadness, longing, fear, or grief. To acknowledge and express these emotions requires strength, for it is far easier to avoid or suppress them. Yet when we meet our own discomfort with acceptance, we cultivate resilience and a profound sense of self-compassion. By allowing ourselves to feel fully, we not only honor our own experience, but also create a mirror in which others feel safe to explore their own emotional depths. Vulnerability becomes a shared rhythm, a silent dialogue that nurtures empathy and connection. Vulnerability also transforms the way we perceive communication in relationships. Most conflicts arise not from words themselves, but from a lack of understanding of the emotions underlying them. When we engage with others from a place of openness and vulnerability, we are better able to perceive the unspoken cues that reveal their true feelings. We begin to see the subtle shifts in energy, the hesitations, the unarticulated concerns that color every interaction. By responding to these signals with presence and empathy, we create a space where dialogue transcends mere exchange of information, becoming an expression of mutual recognition and care. Moreover, vulnerability teaches us that our worth is not contingent upon perfection or constant strength. The unspoken language of the heart thrives when we acknowledge our flaws, fears, and uncertainties. By expressing our true emotional states, we invite authenticity into our interactions and model a way of being that encourages others to do the same. This reciprocal openness cultivates trust and intimacy, forming bonds that are resilient because they are grounded in truth rather than performance. The act of being vulnerable also heightens our sensitivity to the unspoken signals of others. When we have courageously exposed our own hearts, we become more attuned to the subtle emotional currents in those around us. We notice the fleeting expressions of discomfort, the hesitant gestures, the glimmers of joy that often go unnoticed. This attunement enriches our relationships, allowing us to respond with care, compassion, and insight. It creates a feedback loop in which vulnerability begets empathy, and empathy deepens connection, enabling the heart to communicate its unspoken truths in ways that words alone could never achieve. Finally, embracing vulnerability invites a profound shift in perspective. It teaches us that emotional expression is not a liability but a strength, that authenticity carries far more power than pretense, and that the heart's unspoken language is a vital conduit for connection, growth, and understanding. When we surrender to this practice, we discover that vulnerability is not an act of exposure, but a form of liberation, a release from the constraints of fear and the superficiality of appearances. It allows us to experience life more fully, to connect with others more deeply, and to honor the subtle, intricate language through which the heart speaks. Through vulnerability, the heart becomes a beacon of truth, communicating beyond words, beyond gestures, beyond surface-level interactions. It is in this openness that we discover the transformative potential of the unspoken language of the heart, a language that asks only for our courage, our presence, and our willingness to be truly seen. Patience is one of the most essential qualities when learning to listen to the unspoken language of the heart. The messages of the heart are rarely immediate or forceful. They arrive gently, sometimes almost imperceptibly, and they require our full attention to be understood. In a world dominated by speed, urgency, and instant gratification, cultivating the patience to perceive these subtle cues can feel counterintuitive. Yet it is precisely this quality that allows the heart's messages to be received in their fullness. Impatience causes us to jump to conclusions, to impose interpretations, or to overlook the nuanced signals that carry profound meaning. By practicing patience, we create a space within ourselves that honors the pace at which the heart communicates, allowing its guidance to emerge organically rather than being rushed or distorted. Listening to the heart with patience begins with stillness. It requires pausing amidst the constant noise of life, whether it be external distractions or the internal chatter of thoughts, and turning our attention inward. In moments of stillness, we become more attuned to the delicate stirrings of emotion that are often drowned out by the mind's demands or the clamor of external obligations. A fleeting feeling of hesitation, a subtle tug toward a particular decision, or a quiet sense of unease are all signals that merit our attention. They are not problems to be solved immediately, nor conclusions to be reached hastily. They are invitations to observe, reflect, and understand. Through patient observation, we cultivate the ability to notice patterns, to discern the difference between transient impulses and persistent signals, and to align our responses with the deeper truths that the heart conveys. Patience also involves the recognition that understanding often unfolds gradually. The heart communicates in layers, revealing its messages over time rather than all at once. A single moment may provide only a hint, a partial glimpse of the underlying truth, which requires careful reflection and repeated attention to fully grasp. Just as a tree gradually grows, drawing nourishment from the soil and sun, the understanding of the heart develops incrementally. Attempting to rush this process risks missing the depth and subtlety inherent in each emotional signal. When we allow ourselves the time to absorb, process, and integrate these messages, our perception becomes more accurate and our responses become more aligned with authentic insight rather than reactive impulse. Another critical aspect of patience is learning to tolerate uncertainty. The heart's guidance often arrives without a clear roadmap or a guaranteed outcome. Unlike analytical reasoning, which seeks certainty and clear solutions, the unspoken language of the heart asks us to trust in a process that is not always immediately visible. This uncertainty can be uncomfortable, as we are conditioned to seek immediate answers and control. Yet patience allows us to sit with the unknown, to accept that clarity emerges gradually, and to remain open to the evolving messages that the heart provides. By cultivating this tolerance, we develop resilience and a deeper capacity for discernment, understanding that the timing of insight is as important as its content. Patience is equally vital in our interactions with others. Just as our own hearts communicate subtly, so too do the hearts of those around us. People often reveal their emotions, intentions, and desires in ways that are indirect, fleeting, or nuanced. A glance that hesitates, a pause before speaking, or a subtle shift in posture may convey more than words ever could. Recognizing and interpreting these signals requires the patience to observe without rushing to judgment or conclusion. When we listen with patience, we create a safe space for others to express themselves authentically, allowing their unspoken language to emerge without pressure or expectation. This attentive presence fosters empathy, trust, and connection, deepening our relationships and enhancing our ability to respond in ways that honor the true essence of the other person. Patience also teaches us to honor the natural rhythm of our emotions. Emotional experiences are not uniform or predictable. They ebb and flow, sometimes surfacing fully, and at other times receding into subtle hints. By respecting this rhythm, we avoid the temptation to force resolution, suppress discomfort, or hasten understanding. Instead, we allow our feelings to unfold at their own pace, creating the conditions for genuine insight and emotional integration. In this way, patience becomes a form of respect for our inner life, acknowledging that the heart's wisdom is not a commodity to be extracted quickly, but a process to be experienced fully. Furthermore, cultivating patience enhances our sensitivity to the nuances of energy in the environment around us. The heart communicates not only through internal sensations, but also through subtle interactions with people, places, and circumstances. A quiet space, a fleeting gesture, or the gentle rhythm of a conversation can all carry messages that require attentive perception. By slowing down and observing carefully, we learn to detect these signals, to sense the unspoken currents of connection and emotion that permeate every interaction. This heightened awareness allows us to respond with discernment, aligning our actions with the deeper truths present in each moment. Finally, patience reinforces the understanding that growth, insight, and emotional resonance are cumulative. Just as the heart's language communicates over time, so too does the understanding of life's complexities. Each observation, each moment of reflection, and each patient encounter with our own feelings or those of others contributes to a larger tapestry of wisdom. By embracing patience, we honor the gradual unfolding of understanding, allowing the heart's unspoken language to guide us with clarity, depth, and authenticity. Through patience, we learn that the heart does not demand hasty action or immediate interpretation. It communicates in a rhythm that mirrors the natural flow of life, requiring us to slow down, to observe, and to trust the unfolding of insight. This practice cultivates presence, discernment, and empathy, enabling us to engage fully with the subtleties of our own emotions and the unspoken currents in others. Patience, in essence, becomes both the vessel and the guide through which the profound language of the heart can be truly heard. The heart's unspoken language carries a profound lesson about unity, a truth often overlooked in the rush and noise of daily life. Beneath the layers of words, beliefs, and external differences, there exists a shared current of experience, emotion, and energy that connects every human being. This connection is subtle, quiet, and intangible, yet it is constantly present, bridging the gaps that words alone often fail to span. When we attune ourselves to the heart, we begin to perceive these invisible threads, recognizing that what unites us is far stronger than what divides us. The language of the heart transcends culture, nationality, and ideology, speaking directly to the common essence of human experience: love, longing, joy, sorrow, hope, and fear. Perceiving this unity begins with awareness of our own inner landscape. When we slow down and notice the emotional currents within ourselves, we gain insight into the universal nature of these experiences. Joy feels the same across different lives, sadness resonates with the same depth, and love flows in ways that defy categorization. The more deeply we understand our own emotions, the more readily we can recognize them in others, even when their outward expressions differ from ours. This is the first step in experiencing the heart's unspoken language of connection, recognizing that the essence of feeling is shared and that beneath surface appearances our hearts speak the same subtle language. This awareness of shared humanity is reinforced in interactions with others. Often conflicts, misunderstandings, or feelings of isolation arise not from the absence of connection, but from our inability to perceive it. We focus on differences in opinion, behavior, or circumstance, missing the underlying emotional resonance that links us. When we pause and tune in, we notice the unspoken signals, the slight hesitation, the tender smile, the vulnerability glimpsed in another's gaze that reveal the shared emotional currents beneath the surface. These cues communicate trust, empathy, and recognition, affirming that, despite apparent separations, we are all part of a larger whole. The unspoken language of the heart also invites us to recognize empathy as a bridge to unity. Empathy is not simply an intellectual exercise, it is a felt experience, a resonance with another's emotional state that arises when we listen attentively and observe carefully. When we allow ourselves to feel what another person is experiencing, we are participating in a silent dialogue that transcends words. We are speaking and hearing the same language of emotion, the same subtle currents of hope, fear, and longing. In these moments, the barriers created by differences of culture, language, or circumstance dissolve, revealing the underlying unity that binds us together. Unity through the heart is not passive. It requires active presence and mindful engagement. It demands that we slow down enough to perceive the nuances of emotion in ourselves and others, that we resist the urge to judge or categorize, and that we open ourselves to the full spectrum of human experience. By being fully present, we allow the invisible currents of connection to emerge, creating a sense of resonance that is both felt and understood. This presence communicates care, attention, and acknowledgement, reinforcing the unspoken bonds that exist between individuals. Patience again plays a critical role in perceiving unity through the heart. The connections we share with others are rarely instantaneous or obvious. They develop gradually, revealed through repeated interactions, shared experiences, and attentive observation. By patiently observing the subtle rhythms of behavior, gesture, and emotion, we begin to sense the underlying harmony that links us to one another. These quiet, persistent signals communicate the universality of human experience, teaching us that connection is not manufactured but discovered through careful attention and openness. Recognizing unity through the heart also enhances our ability to navigate conflict and misunderstanding. When we perceive the emotional currents that underlie words or actions, we gain insight into motivations, fears, and desires that may not be explicitly stated. This insight allows us to respond with compassion rather than defensiveness, to acknowledge the shared humanity in situations where disagreement or tension arises. By interpreting the unspoken language of the heart, we cultivate a deeper awareness of the connections that persist even in challenging circumstances, reinforcing the sense that no one is truly isolated and that understanding is always possible when approached from a place of presence and empathy. Moreover, the heart's language teaches us that unity is not uniformity, Recognizing connection does not mean erasing individuality or differences. Rather, it is the awareness that beneath diversity lies a common essence. Each person expresses the currents of love, fear, hope, and vulnerability in unique ways, yet these expressions are all rooted in the same underlying human experience. By attuning ourselves to these subtle expressions, we begin to appreciate both the richness of individuality and the continuity of shared emotional life. In doing so, we cultivate respect, acceptance, and a profound sense of interconnectedness. The unity through the heart also extends beyond human relationships. It can be felt in the natural world, in art, and in the rhythms of life itself. A sunrise evokes the same sense of awe across continents. The laughter of children resonates universally, and the flow of music or movement can stir emotions that transcend language. These experiences remind us that the unspoken currents of life link all beings, reinforcing the heart's capacity to perceive connection in every moment. By paying attention to these subtle cues, we cultivate a broader awareness of unity, sensing the invisible bonds that tie together people, nature, and the very rhythm of existence. Ultimately, the unspoken language of the heart teaches that unity is not something to be achieved through effort alone, but something to be perceived and honored. It requires patience, presence, and a willingness to feel deeply, to listen attentively, and to recognize the shared emotional essence that flows beneath the surface of all interactions. This awareness transforms how we engage with others, guiding us toward empathy, compassion, and authentic connection. Through the heart's subtle language, we discover that separation is often an illusion and that life's true rhythm is one of interconnection, where every emotion, gesture, and subtle signal participates in the quiet symphony of unity. In the quiet spaces between words, in the subtle shifts of emotion and the gentle rhythms of presence, the heart speaks its profound truth. Its language is unhurried, nuanced, and timeless, guiding us toward awareness, empathy, and connection. When we learn to listen, to honor our own feelings, to perceive the unspoken signals of others, and to embrace vulnerability with patience, we open ourselves to a depth of understanding that transcends explanation. The unspoken language of the heart reminds us that beneath differences, beyond appearances and surface expressions, we are all connected by the same currents of emotion, longing, and love. By attuning ourselves to this language, we not only discover the unity that binds us to others, but also the richness and authenticity within ourselves. In listening with the heart, we find that true connection, insight, and wisdom are not spoken, they are felt, shared, and lived in the silent, enduring dialogue of life itself.